Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of my favorite topics, how to build jaw-dropping, heart-pounding suspense in your stories, animations, or films. We're going to break down a classic horror scenario, the dreaded peephole scene, and show you how every single shot, sound, and shadow can be used to crank up the tension until your audience can't breathe. Ready? Let's get started. Moving in is supposed to be exciting, right? A new chapter. But this place felt different from the moment I stepped into the hallway. The corridor stretched out like a throat, long and dark, with peeling paint that looked like shedding skin. The lights flickered, throwing spasms of light and shadow, making the whole walk feel like a stutter. And the smell. It was this weird, metallic, damp odor, like old blood and wet concrete. It clung to the back of my throat. I got to the elevator, and the ancient doors trembled as they closed, groaning like something in pain. The shadows on the floor stretched and writhed, and I just wanted to get to my apartment. As I walked down the hall, the shadows made it seem endless, like I wasn't getting any closer. That's when I saw him. My new neighbor, standing across the hall from his door, completely still. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, staring. His eyes were the worst part. Under the flickering lights, they looked hollow, just dark pits, and he didn't blink. Not once. I froze, the boxes in my arms suddenly feeling impossibly heavy. The whole hallway seemed to twist and distort around me. My first thought, trying to rationalize it, was maybe he's just lonely, but my shoulders were so tense they ached. I hurried to my door, fumbled with my keys, and decided to take a quick look through the peephole before I went in. The hallway was empty, he was gone. But the shadows seemed to have grown, creeping up the walls. Inside my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards outside my door made me jump. I could almost see a shadow moving under the crack. Looking back through the peephole, I saw him again. A warped silhouette contorted by the chaotic dance of the flickering light. I gripped my hoodie, my palms slick with sweat. That metallic smell seeped under the door, so strong I could almost see it, like a curling mist. I had to go back out to get the last of my boxes. Walking past his door was the longest walk of my life. The air was thick and cold. I found myself muttering, trying to fill the silence, my own voice trembling. It's fine, you're just tired. It's just a weird old building. But the flickering light overhead cast shadows that danced like frantic skeletal things. Finally, back in my apartment, I slammed the deadbolt, triple-checked the lock, and leaned against the door, my heart pounding. The apartment was bright, but looking back through the peephole, all I could see was the dark, empty hallway, waiting. Something's wrong with the floor. Just in front of my door, I saw these faint scratches in the wood. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stared at them, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My first thought? It had to be the neighbor's dog. I ran out, my hands shaking as I pounded on their door, but no one answered. The hallway was dead silent. Back inside, I knelt down, my breath catching in my throat. These weren't dog scratches. They were jagged, deep gouges, splintering the wood. It looked like something had tried to claw its way in. Panic started to set in. I leaned against the wall, my mind racing. What could have done this? The sun was setting, casting long, menacing shadows across my apartment. I wedged a chair under the doorknob, a flimsy defense against whatever was out there. As darkness consumed the room, the shadows seemed to twist and writhe along the walls. My fingers trembled as I touched the marks again, tracing their sharp edges. I retreated to the farthest corner, stacking a pile of heavy books against the door, for good measure. I thought I was alone, but then I saw a flicker of movement in the shadows just behind me. It was so faint I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. My eyes darted around the room, pupils wide with terror. The whole apartment felt wrong, distorted. The shadows stretched like living things, and the old floorboards groaned under a weight that wasn't mine. I started whispering to myself, just trying to stay sane, but the panic was a physical thing now, a knot tightening in my chest. A drop of sweat fell from my forehead, splashing onto the floor. That's when I saw it. From my point of view, it looked like the scratches were moving, crawling across the floor like tiny skeletal hands, inching their way toward me. I scrambled back, my body shaking uncontrollably. The silence from the hallway outside was no longer empty. It was heavy, expectant. I pulled my hoodie tight around myself, staring at the doorframe, at those horrifying marks. I could almost see the faint shimmer of movement just beyond the door, a presence I couldn't see but could feel with every fiber of my being. It's still there. I know it is, waiting. My eyes snapped open. I wasn't sure what woke me, but a primal fear was already crawling up my spine. The shadows in my apartment, usually so familiar, were twisting and shifting in the dim light. I held my breath, listening. That's when I heard it. A sound from just outside my front door. Heavy, ragged breathing, like an animal or something worse. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating silence. Every instinct screamed at me to stay put, to hide under the covers like a child. But I had to know, I had to see. Slowly, I slipped out of bed, my feet silent on the cold hardwood floor. Each step toward the door was an agony of suspense. I reached it, my hand trembling as I leaned in, pressing my eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. Just the usual dim, flickering overhead light. A wave of relief washed over me, so strong it almost made me dizzy. I was about to pull away, to laugh at my own paranoia when it happened. An eye filled the lens, gray, bloodshot, and ancient. It stared right through me, into me. I stumbled back with a choked gasp, crashing into the side table. The lamp went flying, shattering on the floor, and plunging the room into a chaotic dance of light and shadow. I scrambled away, pressing myself flat against the far wall, my breath coming in ragged sobs. My whole body shook uncontrollably. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the image was burned into my mind, that single hateful eye. When I dared to look again, the peephole was dark. The presence was gone, but the air was still thick with it, heavy and suffocating. The shadows in the room seemed to lean in, stretching towards me like grasping fingers. "It's nothing," I whispered to the empty room, the words tasting like a lie. It was just a dream, but then a floorboard groaned in the hallway outside, a soft, deliberate sound. My gaze darted back to the door. The walls of my own apartment felt like they were closing in, squeezing the air from my lungs. I could feel it out there, just waiting. The silence stretched, thin and brittle, ready to snap at any moment. And I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that this was only the beginning. Stay tuned for what happens next. The flickering hallway light did little to calm my nerves. Each step toward my landlord's office felt heavier than the last. I burst in without knocking, desperation etched on my face. My landlord, a man usually composed, looked genuinely startled. I tried to explain, my words tumbling out in a panicked rush. The scratches on my walls, the feeling of being watched. That single, unblinking eye staring at me from the darkness. He gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles turning white. His face was pale, almost ashen. He leaned in, his voice a barely audible whisper. "That apartment. It's been empty for 6 months." The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. My mind reeled. Empty? But that was impossible. I saw it. I felt it. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light, cutting through the blinds, a silent testament to the room's stillness, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in my head. He warned me then, his voice low and urgent, about things that linger, spirits that refuse to leave. He spoke of a previous tenant, a tragedy he wouldn't elaborate on. A shiver traced its way down my spine, cold sweat beading on my forehead. The shadows from the blinds danced across my face, creating a macabre mask. His own eyes kept darting nervously toward the corridor, as if he expected something to appear. Walking back to my apartment was a nightmare. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the shadows playing tricks on my eyes. I passed my neighbor's door, the one he said was empty, and my entire body tensed. My hand hovered over my own doorknob, a wave of pure terror washing over me. What was waiting for me on the other side? The single light bulb overhead flickered again, casting long, menacing shadows that seemed to writhe and reach for me. My own doorframe loomed like the gaping mouth of some terrible beast. Once inside, I slammed the door shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. I double-checked the locks, my trembling hands fumbling with the keys. It wasn't enough. I grabbed a chair and shoved it under the doorknob, a flimsy barricade against the unknown. I began whispering to myself, trying to reason, trying to stay sane, but the panic was a rising tide. And then I heard it, faint at first, but unmistakable. A dry, scraping sound. It was coming from the other side of the door. I froze, a muscle in my body screaming. It was back. I sit straight up in bed, my room lit by a single harsh bulb. My hair is a mess, and my eyes are wide, refusing to close. It's been happening every night for a week now, at exactly 3 a.m. Then it starts. A low hum, almost a vibration that seems to come from deep within the building. It fills the air, a physical presence in the suffocating quiet. The sound pulls me, draws me from the relative safety of my room. The hallway is a pit of darkness, save for one fluorescent light at the far end, flickering like a dying heartbeat. The hum is stronger out here. You can almost see it in the air, rippling like heat haze. I inch toward my door, my hand trembling as I reach for the knob. Slowly, carefully, I crack it open just enough to peek. Darkness. Utter and complete, swallowing the light from my room. Then I see it. My neighbor from 3B. He's hanging from the ceiling vent, his body limp, his head twisted at an impossible, sickening angle. His eyes? They're hollow, but there's a faint gleam in them, a spark of something that shouldn't be there. His lips are sealed shut, yet the hum is louder than ever, coming directly from him. I stumble back, the wall hitting my back hard. A shriek dies in my throat. Just as I'm about to slam the door, I see them. Long, sharp fingernails, black and jagged, sliding through the crack. They scrape against the wood, a sound like nails on a chalkboard that grinds my teeth. I throw my entire weight against the door, slamming it shut with a deafening boom. Sweat pours down my face, my heart hammering against my ribs. I press my ear to the wood, panting. Shadows stretch under the door, long, dark fingers reaching for me. The hum intensifies, the walls themselves seeming to vibrate with its power. I can feel it in my bones, in my teeth. Then, the scratching starts again. Tap, tap. A slow, deliberate rhythm, a metronome of pure dread. The shadows under the door creep closer, inching toward my feet, and then silence. The hum cuts off, plunging the world into a suffocating quiet that's somehow worse than the noise. That's my cue. I grab my backpack, throwing anything I can inside. I have to get out. I don't know what that thing in the hallway is, but I know I can't stay here another night. The silence is just a pause, a breath before the real hunt begins. The hallway was quiet, almost peaceful, as the first rays of morning light struggled to pierce the gloom. I stood at the doorway, my bag packed, ready to leave. Just one last look around, I told myself. That's when I saw it. A small, torn piece of fabric, fluttering from the vent grate near the ceiling. It looked familiar, too familiar. It was the same pattern as the shirt I was wearing. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. A cold knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Then, I noticed something else. Scratches. Deep, ugly gouges in the wooden floor, leading from inside my apartment out into the hallway. They looked fresh. A sudden warmth on the back of my neck made me freeze. It felt like someone had just breathed on me. Goosebumps erupted all over my skin. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My eyes were fixed on the scratches, but my mind was screaming at me to turn around. Slowly, ever so slowly, I did. A dark shape loomed behind me, so close I could feel its presence, a suffocating weight in the air. My head tilted upward, following the silhouette, and that's when I saw him, my neighbor. His body was twisted, hanging from the vent I'd just been looking at, his head bent back at an impossible angle. His eyes, wide and lifeless, weren't looking at me. They were staring past me into the darkness of my apartment. I followed his gaze back into my own home. And there it was, crouched low to the ground. A demonic shape unfolded itself from the shadows. Its grin stretched impossibly wide, a silent, terrifying welcome. It rose smoothly, unnaturally, its movements fluid like something out of a nightmare animation. Two glowing, malevolent eyes materialized within the shifting darkness, fixing on me. I was paralyzed. A scream caught in my throat, every muscle locked in pure, unadulterated fear. The air grew thick, heavy with the metallic tang of old blood, a scent that manifested as a swirling red and black mist. Dark, shadowy tendrils slithered across the floor, creeping towards my feet. I could only watch, my own terrified reflection staring back at me from the creature's advancing form. The world narrowed to its perspective, rushing towards me, the shadows swallowing everything until there was nothing left. Just darkness and the chilling silence of the empty hall. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the scratches inching closer across the floor, tearing their way toward me like skeletal fingers desperate to get inside my skin. Then everything stopped, not a normal pause. A suffocating stillness, heavy and alive, pressed down on the room like a hand on my throat. Even the shadows looked like they were holding their breath. And slowly, the air shifted. Not a sound, not a movement, just a cold pressure rising from beneath the door and sliding across my skin like ice made of breath. Then came the whisper, not from the hallway, from inside the apartment above me. My eyes lifted and my heart tried to rip its way out of my chest. He was hanging from the ceiling, my neighbor. Not like before, not frozen, not still, but moving. His broken neck tilted sideways as if invisible hands were turning his head toward me like a puppet. His face was stiff, but his eyes were wide open now, staring, not at me, but past me, into the darkness behind my back. I followed his gaze. That was when I saw it. A shadow crouched low in the corner by the wardrobe, but it wasn't a shadow. It was breathing, expanding and collapsing like a chest, struggling to contain something monstrous. A face formed within it, long, hollow, wrong. The mouth stretched first huge, too wide, filled with thin, needle-like teeth that went impossibly far back. The metallic smell in the hallway, its breath, the scratches at my door, its fingers, the presence behind me every night, its hunger. And the worst part, the part that made my bones rattle, it wasn't mimicking my footsteps. It was learning me. A shadowy arm slid across the floor toward my foot, reaching, hunting, claiming. You came back. The voice didn't sound out loud. It landed directly inside my skull, like a thought that didn't belong to me. My body reacted before my brain did. I lunged for the door. The chair crashed to the floor. The lock snapped open in a single panicked motion. The air behind me thickened, vibrating with a sound that felt like teeth grinding against bone. I heard the neighbor's body drop a sickening crack of ruined flesh hitting the ground. I didn't look back. I flung open the door and ran. The hallway lights burst one by one behind me, swallowed whole by something moving too fast to be human. I ran until my lungs burned, until my vision blurred, until the stairs appeared like salvation. Right before I disappeared down them, I heard one last whisper, soft, cold, drifting like a dead leaf brushing my ear. Come back. You are mine, but I didn't. I never went back. And yet, ever since that night, I keep seeing things. A scratch on a new door. A metallic scent in unfamiliar buildings. A shadow stretched just a little too long behind me. I know what it means. It found me. It's getting closer. And it will never stop. Never.